welcome back to the Up and Running Pod. Wherever you're listening, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we really appreciate it because when you get up and running, we're right there with you. I'm your host, always, is Mike, here with the laughable, lovable, always joyful Turkey. Turkey, how are we tonight?
Man, excited. Just got looked at the weather. Going to be a clear weekend this weekend for Richmond, so we're going to go play some golf this Sunday. Super excited for that. Also, the end of conference tournaments, which means this weekend we'll have the brackets ready to go on Sunday.
Absolutely, and that's something we're going to touch on later on too. We have a show lined up for you listeners. We're so excited about this. We're going to have some different guests on. You've seen some of them. Some of them are going to be new, but we're going to talk all things NCAA tournament. We're going to talk all things what our picks are, Final Four. We're going to do something similar that you've seen on other platforms where we are going to actually give our selections and picks and then track them throughout the week's episodes. But before we dive into that, Justin, I'm excited that you're playing golf, man, because anytime we get a chance to play golf, you and I always have a ball talking about it.
Oh, yeah, and super excited. So won these free passes a year ago, literally, from my son's baseball team's tournament. So we got to use them by the 31st of this month, and it just so happened that they're punching the greens next week, and I called the guy, and I was like, hey, man, trying to get a tee time. He's like, well, we're closed next week, so we'd love to get you out. I checked the weather. It looks beautiful this weekend, so get a little rain Friday night, soften them greens up, so I'll be throwing them darts in.
There you go. That's what I like to hear. Going for every par 5 and 2.
That's right.
I'm actually getting a chance. I got invited to play in a member guest with Austin. You guys have seen him on the show. We had the OT debate with him. It was one of our most popular episodes. And so Austin is a member of the club, and so we're getting a chance to a one-day member guest. For those that don't know, Austin and I actually won the 2022 version of the larger member guest. And so, man, I am super pumped to go play with Austin, and that's going to be towards the end of April. So we just signed up our team for that. That's
awesome, man. That'll be fun. Member guests are great. They're great tournaments to play in. Just an exciting atmosphere out there when you get that going on.
Absolutely. So again, it's the Up and Running Pod. Follow us on X at Up and Running Pod. Justin's handle there is mine as well. We got an interesting show tonight. We're going to talk a little bit of basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball. We have some NASCAR, as always. We have Turkey Stats, Do Better, a new segment. Take a look. Make sure you listen up for that one that we're going to introduce. And then always we're going to end it. We're going to throw some golf in there as well, but we're going to end it with the horses as well. A little bit of a quieter weekend, so that may be a smaller segment towards the end of the show, but I'm sure Justin's got some curveballs and some interview questions lined up for me. So we're ready and ready to dive into that. So Justin, how about we start off with a little bit of basketball, big games this weekend?
Yeah, so you start off coming up, conference tournaments are starting play. In the area, we've got the ACC in DC, and then A10 is in Brooklyn. But Richmond, who one of the things I wanted to touch on tonight, and it's no way to get started, they won the regular season of the A10. And if U of R doesn't win the tournament, they're likely out of the postseason. They might get an NIT bid, or, that's about it. So one question I want to ask, that there are other big games going on, and, you had Duke, UNC this past weekend, which we'll get into, but one of the biggest one of the biggest things that I really struggle with is how do you win the regular season and then don't go to the tournament?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Especially if you're the best team. So U of R, best team by far in that division, but has a bad game and loses. How do they not go? So that's going to be interesting to see. Their tournament, the ACC tournament, everybody, you love the ACC. There's great basketball schools. Well, I can tell you what, folks, if you're looking for good basketball this year, the ACC is not what you want to be watching. They are absolutely horrendous. The top two teams, Duke and UNC, are better than everybody else. They're playing down. Duke is okay, but they're nothing what you expect the powerhouses to be.
Yeah,
you look at this past weekend.
Yeah, no. It's not the old Coach K Duke. It's really not. And the Duke-UNC rivalry is always a huge rivalry. I was a huge UNC fan growing up in high school, in college, and just when I got out of college as well. As I've gotten older, I've gotten into other sports and just taking more time away from, being such a huge UNC fan. I do root for them, and I was excited to see they upset Brandy's Duke Blue Devils. And so I was thrilled to see that. I'm sure she's still mad and probably throwing things in the house, but that's okay. But I was glad to see that. But again, an interesting thing we're going to touch on too is that the Duke star player that was involved in a controversy about 2 weeks ago when we did this podcast, he got a little bit of a controversy as well. Looks like he was tripping some people after maybe he got hit when they got beat at Wake Forest.
Yeah, so I have no sympathy for this guy. I mean, I was watching a program the other night, and there was this guy, Grayson Allen, shooting a three-pointer, and it went in. And then apparently he threw in his Duke uniform and came back to go play against Carolina one last time. I have no respect for anybody trying to injure a player that way. There, we talked about it. Have talked about it before. If you tackle a guy hard, if you have a hard foul, legal things that are in the game where you can be a little bit more aggressive. But when you're intentionally trying to hurt someone, that I have no respect for. And this goes back to, we talked about the court storming. I will tell you right now, I don't believe for a second that he didn't try and trip somebody running at him.
Sure.
In that scenario, as much as I will vouch for the players need to be protected, forget that. Caitlin Clark, different story. But him, no, if that's the way he's going to be, that's ridiculous. This kid was running back to go play defense, and you just blatantly try and trip him, and that's just uncalled for. I mean, that's Grayson Allen stuff, and Duke gets away with it, though. Duke gets away with everything.
That's actually going to bring us into my Do Better segment of the week. Hashtag Do Better. This is the Do Better segment, and I'm calling out those athletes that they always want justice when it's done against them, but when they commit the error, they commit the foul, they want mercy. And that stems from a problem that we have, I think in the world today. You always want it when, for example, he gets knocked down or he gets knee to knee on a court storming, and he's like this and he's all over the place and he can't walk and whatever. But yet now he's on the ground, he trips into the UNC player and hands go up like, I didn't do anything. So
Right.
When it happens to you, you want everybody around there to get justice and call for this and court storming. But when you do it, you want a little mercy and grace. And that's not how it's supposed to be. We've got to do better as athletes. We have to do better as a people, as showing more love and kindness in the world. We've got to do better. There's got to be more grace in the world. I agree, more mercy. But we can't always hold everyone accountable for immediate justice, because when you do it, you're going to want mercy or grace if it truly is an accident. Now, to that point, off the Do Better, is that if you're an athlete and you're intentionally trying to hurt someone, do better. Because at that point, you deserve the full, swift justice, whatever it is. If it is intentional, that's why they have intentional fouls and different penalties and such like that. So if you are going to do something like that, do better, because there's no room for that in this world. There's no room for that in the game, in sports, in life. You have no business intentionally trying to hurt someone. I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't understand the need to injure anybody, much less it's your hated rival. Okay, so I get it. Like, I can understand.
It's
like
gonna be heated, sure.
You want to have a hard foul there, right? But not the way that was orchestrated. Like, it's a cheap shot. And here's the thing. Here's the one thing I'll say. You watch all the greats. They talk about Tom Brady cheated and Michael Jordan pushed off. Well, here's the thing. They're going to get away with stuff like that. Okay, you're going to get away with a few things. What great players don't do is intentionally try to hurt an opponent.
Exactly.
They don't take the cheap shot. A little bit better. They want to win because they're the best. They might do things here and there, like a little push here or a little touch there, but that is not what they do. Okay.
No.
But anyway, he's a pile of junk, and they got smoked. They got worked from the time the jump ball happened. They came back at the end and whatever. Carolina.
It's the same thing with LeBron. That's the thing that drives me crazy about LeBron. It's like always wants every single call, but in his mind, he's never fouled anyone in his life. And I can tell you this: I played basketball with a heck of an athlete who was a great basketball player, who was a listener of this podcast and part of the group chat, and PJ. PJ's probably laughing right now because he knows exactly who I'm talking about. PJ has never in his mind ever committed a foul. I've seen this man literally hack everyone on the court and literally put his hands up and look at the ref like, how could you call that? He gets blown on and he was hoping for a foul. So it's the same thing, right? And listen, I love PJ to death, and that's my thing. It's just part of it. But we can't do that. We've got to always stop looking for so much justice on one side and then asking for grace when it happens, and we're the ones that are at fault. So do better athletes out there. We want to see better actions when it comes to the NCAA tournament. So that's the do better segment. But switching back to the games this past weekend, a big win for your Alabama Roll Tide.
Yeah, huge game. Another comeback. I mean, listen, they're getting primed for
No,
the
they're not.
tournament.
No,
They
they're
got
not.
the SEC tournament coming up, which runs tomorrow, starts tomorrow through the 17th.
Yeah.
Um, and I can tell you right now, they'll run through just about everybody. I think they're ready. I mean, I think tournament ball is going to be a little bit different for them, but I really, really worry about Auburn.
There's a disclaimer, listeners. He is an Alabama Roll Tide fan, so when he says they're going to run through everybody, they're probably getting bounced in the second round.
I mean, it is what it is, but they're a
Yeah, because
football
they're not that
school
good.
playing great basketball. You
So to explain,
find me
what?
another football school playing great basketball, and you won't.
Houston.
They don't. They're not a football school, Mike.
I mean, they've been
Name one
playing
thing
very good
they've done
football
good.
lately.
They have a football team.
They've been playing good football lately. Anyway, Houston basketball is on
7-on-7 practice.
And here we go. Houston basketball has been on top. Blew Kansas out by 30. That's a ranked school, ranked 14th in the nation. And they
A
got
blue blood, a
rinsed
true blue blood, got
by
smoked.
30. That's incredible. Houston's a team to
Yeah.
look out for in the tournament. It is tough to be at that high of a level for consecutive weeks, consecutive games on. The tournament's a grind, and that's what makes it so special. That's what draws fans in, year out. That's what people stay up late watching it, take off work. And so if you're one of them, please tweet at us. We are going to have a special preview show where we release our picks. Please send us in your picks. You can send them in early if you think so. If you don't even care what the bracket looks like and you want to send in the picks, hit us up on X at Up and Running Pod. And then if not, definitely next week, let us know what your picks are. We're going to have some fan interaction when it comes to that. You're going to have our picks, our guest picks as well, and they're all going to be up on X for everyone to follow. So we're excited about that. But Justin, another Virginia team that's playing really well. And so for those that don't know, Justin and I, what we talked about at the very first episode, so if you're a listener from the first one, truly from Justin and myself, thank you very much for listening and always joining us whenever you get up and running, because definitely we are going to be right there with you. That is something from Justin and I. We've said that from episode 1, so we appreciate that. Justin and I grew up in Virginia, not too far from some big schools, and one of those schools, Justin, is actually playing some phenomenal basketball, and that is James Madison, JMU, as so affectionately called. We've got friends that have gone there, family that's gone there, and so JMU basketball in the Sun Belt Conference. Unfortunately, you can see it on the chest. I am wearing the Marshall gear tonight. Marshall is in the Sun Belt. I went to Marshall. Zach, who you've heard us talk about, went to Marshall. Austin, also who's been on the pod, went to Marshall. And then Talman, who you guys saw as well in the pod. So 4 of us in the group chat did go to Marshall, and we are huge Marshall supporters and fans. But they did lose to JMU, who is actually a very good basketball team, who I think, Justin, you're talking about the difference with the U of R. If James Madison didn't win this Sun Belt tournament, I still think they got an at-large bid.
Yeah, and 31-3 on the year. The only issue is with saying that. I agree. All right, but the funny thing is that in their conference, they had 2 losses to App State. So 2 of the losses come from the conference champion regular season. App State went 16-2. They went 15-3 in the conference. I would want more of that. Okay, so there are 2 arguments there, but I would rather see the top 2 teams. Okay, the regular season and the conference tournament winner. If they're playing well. I mean, if you get somebody that, it has levels of it, right? But
yeah,
instead of seeing,
be careful here, because that's going to creep into some of the CFP argument we talk about, because it is how you're playing lately.
Right, and for the college and for college, it's very tough. I mean, it's the same for pros, but there's a lot more emotion in college. When you got basketball, I mean, it means more. But one thing I would like to see is more of that. Now, you're not going to get every conference is going to have 2 teams, but when you've got like the ACC sending 7, 8, 9 teams, the SEC is that this year they're going to send 7 or 8 teams, and quite frankly, the bottom 2 of those, no matter who they are, I don't care if Bama's there, I'd rather see 2 other mid majors get in, 2 of the top mid majors.
Okay.
So if a conference
Sure.
regular season winner didn't make it, like a U of R. Give them a shot, because generally they're close. They're close to the bottom 8 team, right?
Yeah, I agree.
if they're close, and this is where it becomes subjective, because what does close mean? James Madison went 31-3. They played absolutely nobody.
Except Marshall. Calm down.
Okay. They played Marshall. But realistically, they
Sure.
didn't
I get your point. I get your point.
when you brought up college football. Well, if a team in let's just call the Pac-12 or what used to be the Pac-12 struggles with a Division II team or a Division I AA team and wins the conference, but they didn't beat everybody, had a loss, that's bad. James Madison didn't have a big signature win that I'm aware of. I looked at the schedule, didn't look like anybody. So they win the tournament,
They did
give them that chance. Huh?
Yeah, they did at the beginning of the season. They had an OT thriller with Michigan State.
Okay. All right. So that's their win, right? That's their signature win.
Yep.
But where does Michigan State fall in the Big Ten? They're down, right?
Sure.
So I'm not sure how you would do it because there are a lot of deserving regular season champions that run the gauntlet, and then you lose one game and you're out. If Richmond loses today or loses tomorrow, and they had this great season and lose tomorrow, I mean that's just terrible. That's terrible news for the A10 because now you're guaranteed to not send your best foot forward. And a lot of it comes back to the conference. If you get a win, if you get multiple wins. I mean, look at what VCU and George Mason, Florida Gulf Coast. Nobody knew who Florida Gulf Coast was until they won and then won again. So,
yeah, look, JMU's first game of the season was a 79-76 win over Michigan State in an OT thriller, right? Again, no one knew who JMU was then, but they put some on the map. So they do have a win, but it's a long, long time ago. So I'm with you. When it comes to close, I'd always default to the mid-major. Give the mid-major a shot because if they went 31-3 or they did everything that they were supposed to do, give them a chance. Versus the 7th, 8th, 9th ranked team in the ACC or the SEC or the Big 12 or the Big 10 because they had their chance. They had their chance to be better. They had their chance to get in the top 5, top 6 of their conference and get an automatic qualifier at that point, really. Right. Because if you're the top 5, top 6 in the ACC or SEC, you're getting in the tournament, right?
Yeah.
And they're just giving that to you. But when in doubt, if you're talking about those 12, 13 seeds, the 8-9 game is a big one. The 10-7 game is a big one for me. Give it to a mid-major. Let them get in there. Let them see what happens because we've had those Cinderella stories, which also, again, I think the NCAA would want that too because we have these Cinderella stories that pop up every year, and you're talking about it drives the fans, right? It drives more viewership.
Yep.
It drives the excitement. No one knew who Florida Gulf Coast was. The Loyola Chicago with Sister Jean, whoever the heck that was. VCU was also that team for a while. You've had Vermont be up there. You've had some big teams that show up. The Baltimore, I think, like UCMB or something like that was up there too. So you're talking about some big teams. I mean, some big moments that these mid-major teams have created and big storylines. And honestly, general really excitement where you have a double-digit seed that makes its way to a Final Four. So if you're the NCAA, if it's close, don't give it to the 8th-ranked SEC team because we know what's going to happen. We've seen what they've done. But give it to the mid-major because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so and here's where I really struggle with what's going on in college football is I know everybody wants everybody to be able to have a chance. I get that. But there's legit not 12 teams that can play for a national title.
Sure.
In college basketball, if you allow what the NIL deal has done to college football to happen in college basketball, you won't need a tournament anymore because nobody will want to play. The tournament is the most exciting time of the year. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do. If you love sports, okay, and you could like cricket, you still watch March Madness. You don't have to have a dog in the fight. You can root for the mid-majors. You can root for the Cinderella teams. And it's fun. It's exciting. If you deplete that excitement in the biggest TV event, for a month, it's the biggest TV event, right?
Sure.
If you deplete that with NIL deals and you've got 12 teams from the Big 5 conferences, the Big 4 conferences now, you're not going to have the thrill, the excitement of a VCU, of a Florida Gulf Coast, of a 16 beating a 1. You're just going to run down the tournament and nobody's going to want to watch, because it's just like when Alabama or Georgia the last 2 seasons or anybody runs the gamut for as many years as they did, you get sick of seeing it. And as much as a lot of people will say, well, the Final Four, you want the Blue Bloods in there to have a real big game. Well, I've seen a lot of Cinderellas go to the Final Four and
Sure.
keep it close with big teams. So for
Absolutely.
me, I don't care who it is in the Final Four, as long as the path to the Final Four is as exciting as it's ever been. I have never heard anybody say, well, that was a dull March Madness. But you hear that in football. Besides this season, the previous X amount of college football playoffs, generally it's been blowouts in the semis, or at least one blowout. So you get 3 games and only 2 of them are decent. This season was different, but every season of March Madness is just exciting. You want to watch the games, you want to learn the teams. Everybody's filling out brackets. I mean, there are kids that are filling out brackets. We filled out brackets in middle school and high school, man.
I ran the pool.
You ran the pool. So it's one of those things that if you take away from the mid majors,
Yeah.
they get an automatic bid, but give them a little bit more credit on the close ones so you don't lose that atmosphere. Because the second you start giving away these automatic bids outside of the winner for these other conferences, the top 4, you really take away from what it means, man. I'm excited. I'm excited for the way it's going. I mean, you look at some of these teams that are in here that are the mid majors that are making a run. You talk about Madison. If they go in there and they win 2 or 3 games, I mean, that's going to be exciting for them. That's big for schools like this. That's huge. And one thing, they are a football school. They dominated 1AA for years.
Yeah.
And they're coming in and doing this. And then you have other basketball schools that are historically basketball schools, okay, that are in these mid majors that it's their only shot to get in the tournament if they go win the conference, but yet they've won the conference regular season by 8 games. So that makes it tough. But no,
and I also think, to your point with the NIL, like that's where the excitement's going to still be, right? Because your NIL deals are going to be for the larger conferences, right? The Power 5 schools. That's where the NIL money is going to be. So these mid majors, this is what they've worked for all year. This is what these juniors and seniors have put their blood, sweat, and tears in their practice in. So I mean, you're talking about this is their time to get on that big stage, and also a lot of those guys may not be going to the pros. They may be finding jobs after this. And so this is their last shot at that athlete glory, that athlete excitement, or that camaraderie with your boys in the locker room. I mean, I can tell you, I know I miss the locker room. Like I miss the being on a team, the competitive spirit, the juice. I mean, I miss all that. I miss being a competitive athlete. And I mean, and you do too. I know we've talked about that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And I think the one thing that I've always said about these mid majors, and before the one and done deal came around, I wish they would go to the baseball rules. If you go, you got to stay for 3 years, but they won't. But anyway, what I think people forget is the reason these teams can be good in this scenario is when you play with somebody for 2, 3, 4 years out of a mid major, you learn their tendencies. So that half a second, you might not know how fast they're going to go or what play they're going to run. That's doesn't exist in a 4-year school where you've got 5 guys on the floor that play 4 years together. And then you got reserves that have played, and I think that's what brings the excitement. You hear all these great stories about this guy and that guy. So, you hope it doesn't deplete it. They'll still be there, but it won't be, again, what we're talking about is having the extra team come from the mid-major. And you're not necessarily going to be able to guarantee it, but giving them, like Mike said, the benefit of the doubt when it's close versus a 7th, 8th, or 9th team from the Big Four. Those guys have had – now, ACC in normal years, okay, let's not get it. ACC in normal years is a little bit different. That is a basketball conference by far. But this year they're down, even though they're still going to probably send 5 to 7 schools. Definitely give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, and to our point, putting kind of a bow on this, Justin, that leads us right into the new segment. We've got the do better with me. We've got the turkey stats with Turkey, but we've got a new segment, a fresh segment for you all that we're going to have weekly. And it actually directly talks about this when it talks about the mid-majors and giving them a chance. And the reason being is there's a phenomenal nugget that we have. And Justin, you want to bring in this new segment and introduce this for us?
Yeah, so guy we've had on the podcast, Kyle Talman, he is essentially our research guy when it comes to bets, when it comes to just stats that are like, you can go read this stuff on ESPN, what you can't read what we're getting ready to give you. They're called Talman's Tips. Our new segment is Talman's Tips. It's only going to be here. He's going to give us some information, and we're going to bring it to you. For those of you that like teams like Ohio State, we're sorry. The championship team in the Big Ten Conference in basketball has not made it to the second weekend in 5 years. And we hope that trend continues. But that goes to show you that this is a volatile tournament. Like the champion of the Big Ten, you've got Michigan State, you've got Michigan, you've got Ohio State, you've got Penn State, you've got Purdue. Penn State and Purdue are ranked 2 and 3 this year. Indiana's there. I mean, those are not teams to be messed with. I mean, those are true basketball schools, and so Penn State or Purdue is probably going to win this tournament. They don't make it to the second weekend. If that stat holds true, that would be just incredible. I mean, that would be absolutely mind blowing.
Again, that's for the listeners. That's for your group chat wisdom. That's for you. If you're filling out a bracket, you heard it here. The only place you can find Talman's Tips is on the Up and Running pod. So the Big Ten championship winner does not make it to the second round in 5 years running. So keep that for you if you're filling out your bracket. And stay tuned for more Talman's Tips as we go on with the podcast. So we appreciate Talman getting that with us. So
thank you, sir.
Yeah, Justin, you got an interesting hat. You have an incredible hat collection. For those, again, I mentioned it last week. If you don't watch the pod on YouTube or Spotify video, give us a watch every once in a while because we've got some exciting backdrops. I got the Yankees behind me, and then Justin brings a new hat every once in a while. So Justin has an extensive hat collection. You've seen the threes, you've seen different ones. Justin, what do we got on tonight?
So tonight it's one of the first teams to play in Virginia. Got this on throwback night at the Squirrels game. So
Squirrels are the minor league team for those that are following us here. If you're out here in Houston and you follow the pod, again, we grew up in Virginia. The Squirrels are the minor league baseball team that for long standing was the Richmond Braves, the minor league affiliate of the Atlanta Braves, and now the Squirrels are a minor league affiliate of the San Francisco Giants, and they are the local baseball team there in Richmond. And so Justin is a huge, like I said, hat collector. He's going to bring them every week. He's got something new. You're going to see me with the classic, but Justin's adding to his repertoire as he goes to retro nights and he goes to different stores. He's a hat connoisseur, I would say, and as he is a hat collector, he's gonna grace us with all of those on the show. So Justin, what do we got tonight? Explain to the.
All right, so I figured it out. I'm an idiot. It's the Virginia Virginians, okay. But it's what's cool about it is it's the first pro team we had here in Virginia. They played in Richmond, I believe. But the great thing about these hats, I'll say this, the great thing about the Squirrels who replaced the Richmond Braves is they have a hat collection that is unlike any other. I mean, it's all types of teams there. But yeah, and then they have different logos, but they really care about the city and their involvement. So they've got a couple with just Virginia hats, like with the city of Richmond on there. It's got squirrels or whatever, but it's not just the squirrel emblem. As far as the hat collection goes, anytime Brandy and I go to a new ballpark, I get a new hat. Obviously, I have to order my team hats because I can't travel to Miami, Colorado, and Alabama all the time, or Boston.
But special order them because your head's huge.
Exactly. But no, I just baseball hats. They get some funky ones. We've got the Norfolk Tides down in Norfolk here in Virginia. They've got some weird hats. They can do a lot of things with sea monsters and things like that. But I love them. Like a friend of mine just gifted me with lots of threes hats, which you'll see on the pod. You've seen those. Nice. Love them. So yeah, hats are where it's at, man. I love them. So if y'all have any and want me to wear them, just buy them and send them to me. We'll put the address in the comments later tonight.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and then as we get closer and we get more into this and we start getting some merch of our own, we'll get some gear. We'll get it out to those listeners. So if you want to trade a hat with Justin, send one in for us. Hit us up on X at Up and Running Pod. We'll be happy to swap some hats and get some things like that and get it going. So Justin, any Arizona tea for you? Because we know we had a big thing. We had a big fan interaction with Arizona tea about the Arnold Palmers last week. That they're horrible from the gas station. So I saw some interaction when we had from that, and then we got some feedback on that, which I thought was great.
Well, so first, you know, you probably ought to had some before your championship game. Maybe giving some to your nephew that might have helped. But no,
Drinks tea at home.
I have not partaken in the Arnold Palmer uh, this week, but I plan to on Sunday while I play golf and enjoy one. I believe that Scotty Scheffler had about 25 of them this Sunday evening when he got finished playing golf.
What a round he had. The Arnold Palmer Invitational was this past weekend, and we've talked about Scotty on the pod briefly about how bad his putting is. He's actually been first in strokes gained from tee to green. Driving, iron accuracy, wedge play, he's been first, and he's been dead last in putting in a lot of the signature events, and it's really held him back. But he's also had, I think it was 10 top 12s, dating back all the way to last year when his putting woes really started coming up. That's how good of golf he's playing. He's putting dead last in the field, and he's still finishing top. He's still finishing top 12. I mean, he was putting like a blind person at one point. I mean, it's awful. He tried to do anything, and then Rory McIlroy says, "Why don't you try a mallet putter?" He's been working the putting coach for about 6 months. Brandon Chambly mouthed off and said, "Oh, you should be able to fix someone's putting in 10 minutes because he's an idiot." I cannot.
That's why he's not on tour. That's why he's not on tour. Oh, I can't stand him.
He's terrible. My thing was like, just stop. You're just the most negative person. You're gonna find anything wrong with anyone, and it just drove me nuts. Scotty's a very humble human being. We've seen the Netflix show Full Swing season 1. Scotty was on there. Full Swing season 2 is out. Go check that out. But again, he switches to the mallet putter, and Justin fires a 66 in a runaway Sunday finish on a stacked leaderboard to Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I love watching Bay Hill. I think some of the finishing holes there are just
it's a cool course.
they're ecstatic. You really have opportunities there. So Scheffler, when he came out, just had this weird swing. You know, people were kind of worried at like, what's this guy doing? I mean, Jim Furyk-esque, you know, is kind of what's he got going on?
Slides his feet all over the place.
Yeah, he's just wild down below. And as you watch him, I feel like he's one of these guys. You know, it doesn't have to be normal for him, and he can just play golf. As far as his putting goes, making the switch and then coming out and doing what he's doing, I really think if this continues this week at the Players, he's got to be the odds-on favorite to win the Masters. I don't care who comes from Liv. I don't care about anybody else. If he figures his putting out, like you know what we talked about the tee to green stuff, Scheffler is by far the best in the business. As far as just one of the big things, you know, he's best in the business at for me is when bad things happen, he doesn't erupt. And some players don't do well if they keep it in. He just does it. He just moves on. Like it is what it is, right?
And as an iron player, he's going through a historic iron season dating back to last year. If you take the 6 months from last year and kind of some of the seasons now too, or some of the tournaments now, he's having a historic iron play. As far as his strokes gain approach, I mean, his misses when he's discussed on TV, it's 25 feet. It's like I'll take that in a heartbeat. But they're upsetting him. I mean, he's dialing this thing in, but he's just missing putts. I mean, he's missing several from 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet. There's numbers to back each one of those up. So you're right. If he dials in putting, and a lot of the big name players, Wyndham Clark said this, Rory said this, they said if he putts that way, it's almost just not even fair. I mean, this guy's playing at a historic clip. And so we'll see what happens in Augusta. We all know Rory can't win at Augusta. We've seen that. We know that. He's winless there. My lifetime bet still
here we
winning.
go.
But yeah, I agree. Scotty's got to be the favorite going into Augusta. And also going into this weekend, he is a defending champion when it goes down to Sawgrass to play in this Players.
He went undefeated inside of 10 feet this weekend. Yep. He made everything. I mean, he is just – what do you do? I mean – if he's getting there in 2 and he's hitting them tight, I mean, he's going to smoke you. I mean, if his greens of regulation are, let's say it's 15 out of 18, I mean, he's probably going to end up shooting 6 to 7 under every round, at least, if not better, because on some of the shorter par fives he can get there. But I mean, I'm telling you, I am ready for the clash in Augusta between Liv and PGA. I think the PGA it's a little tough because they've got one horse in the stable right now that I know is ready to go. If we're listening to Mike, then Rory McIlroy's not a horse in the stable. He's out getting scratched.
Yeah.
But Joaquin Niemann, I'm telling you, I would love to see Scheffler and Niemann coming down the back nine on Sunday and really just go toe to toe. Yeah, I mean,
Augusta.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. But definitely excited about this week. The players, they make everybody makes a big deal about Liv. It doesn't matter. Everybody's chosen their sides. The players is going to be the players. Everybody's going to tune in. You're going to watch. You're going to watch 17. Watch the ball fall off the green, go in the water. It's going to be a good weekend for golf.
I mean, they even have prop bets as far as like how many balls are in the water on 17 each day and then total. So that kind of begs the question, Justin. If you could play one par 3, Sawgrass is up there for me. But what's another famous par 3 you'd like to play? Like I think Sawgrass would be incredible to play. I mean, the 17 at Sawgrass.
Is it 7 at Pebble Beach?
7 at Pebble Beach, that would be incredible.
I think the thing is it for me? It's not a distance thing. It's more the atmosphere around it. Like sure. people or no people. I mean, Scottsdale, 16 at Scottsdale is good, but if you look at, Mike's got it. You've seen it on that.
Swing is up on X.
It's on X. But if you, for me, par 3s can be 250 yards. They can be 100 yards. They can be 150. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. But the 7th at Pebble on I'm not going to say a windy day. I don't want to not play golf, but on, a slight breeze and you've got the ocean coming in and just bashing the rocks. Incredible. I mean, how awesome would that be? And then to go down there, especially if you hit the green, like I read something, I mean, literally the other day, a couple of days ago, this guy was like, I've played Pebble 50 times and I still haven't hit the green on 7.
Yeah.
Like this guy's a scratch golfer, golfer. And I'm like, bro, I'm over here with a 12 handicap. Like, all right, I'll hit it in the water every time and take my free drop because that's what's going to happen. I mean, that's the cool thing. Like these places that the pros play, right? You see that. And there are a lot more. But I think the big 3 for our viewers and for just anybody that loves golf would definitely be 17 at Sawgrass, 16 at Scottsdale, and 7 at Pebble. For me, I mean, the Island Green is great. 16, you'd have to have, it's a great hole. I think the atmosphere with the venue there. But at the end of the day, for me, the 7th at Pebble just is I love the hole. I love the way it is. 16 at Augusta, another one. But I would want to relive the Tiger chip in. So
I would rather play 12 at Augusta than 16.
Okay. And I could see that.
I think 12 would be a ball to play at Augusta. I mean, some of you are going to say, listen, me walking on the grounds at Augusta would be a ball.
I'd like to be at Augusta.
Yeah, I just want to be at Augusta, and I'm fine with that. We're in the raffle every year to try to get tickets to Augusta. I just want to go to Augusta. But if courses we can actually go play today, I agree with you. I think the 17 at Sawgrass and 7 at Pebble. But if we got to Augusta, that's a good debate. If it's 12 or 16 on Augusta, which one would you rather play? Those are both phenomenal holes.
I think it's something we'll definitely bring up in the Masters pod. But real quick, just my thoughts. I struggle with 12 because it's a sideways shot.
Okay.
So you have no front or back. You've got to get it up and land it. Or I mean these are pros, right? And it's tough. At least 16. I know it's going to be tough. I'm not saying it's not tougher, but I'm going over water. But I know if I can at least just hit the green, I'll have a putt. Where at 12. Yeah. I mean, you've got to be in the number, I believe, within 10 yards, and then no bounce over, and you don't want to suck it back too far. I mean, it's just so much that can happen.
That back bunker's tough. At 16's hard for me because I'm a natural draw, and my misses that pull left, and that water is just screaming for my ball, so I can see that happening to me. That's interesting. That's definitely a debate for the Masters pod coming up. So, Justin, before we jump into whip around coverage, as we're jumping around, to whip around coverage, we're gonna touch into the frenzy that was the NFL free agency this morning, or this actually past 24 hours, really. So let's walk through some of the big ones. We're not gonna spend too much time on it because we have the offseason free agent pod that we're gonna do when it comes to the NFL. But again, we can't not talk about this because the one that screamed to me was Derrick Henry signing with the Ravens. They just got dramatically better.
I mean, listen, if you can't win now, If you can't win now,
Phew, boy, Lamar's the problem then.
yeah, you have to. You're not talking about just a regular old guy. You're talking
You know, the
about
best
one of
running
the
back in the league.
greatest running backs in the league. I mean, who's there? McCaffrey.
Probably best running back of the past decade, I would say. I mean, he may not be the number one running back in the league right now, but over the past decade, I think he's probably the best running back that the NFL has seen in the past 10 years.
Oh, and the problem with it and the issue for him as a free agent or looking to get money, which he's getting paid,
Sure.
but it's Tennessee had to abuse him. They were so bad at quarterback, he had to throw touchdowns. I
Absolutely.
mean, but he's a running back that could truly get to break 2,000 yards. Okay,
Sure.
he's done it. He can do it again, but you have to know how to manage him. And the great thing about him is he's not a first down or a second down back or a third down back. He's an any down back.
Yep.
He can block, he can run, he can catch, he can throw.
And a hard man to bring down.
And that's the thing. When he lays the hammer, he lays the hammer. It's a sledgehammer coming through. I mean, there are things that you used to hear about Herschel Walker. You heard about Bo Jackson. You hear about some of these other running backs and how big their legs were and how it was hard. Derrick Henry runs over teams, not players. And what happened in Tennessee can't happen in Baltimore. That's where the benefit of having Henry comes, because you can't stack 8 in the box, 9 in the box, 10 in the box. You've actually got to play the other, the receivers and the quarterback in Baltimore. I'm telling you right now, if Baltimore doesn't, if he stays healthy for 17 games next year, and Baltimore's not the 1 seed, and Baltimore doesn't win the AFC Championship game, then Lamar Jackson is not the man. He's not the one. And you hate saying that.
Or it's a coaching issue. And the reason I say that is, with that kind of team, I would right now, all I would do is invest in offensive linemen. And I would invest in middle tier backup offensive linemen as well, because I'm going to run the ball 70, 75% of the game. 75% of my touches are going to be running the ball with Lamar, with Henry, with whoever my third down back or my backup running back is, and I'm feeding those guys, my playmakers. Throw a pass every once in a while, keep the defense guessing. They start stacking 8, 9 in the box, let Lamar sling it. I'm telling you, that's an offense that is going to be scary to deal with. And so, I mean, that's one to look for when we see the season coming around.
Yeah, I think last point. I think the biggest thing with signing him though is this: all they have to do is look back to last season, the championship game. You get the big pass from Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
You get down to the 3. You have the penalty. You get back to 1st and goal, and you have nobody to get you home.
Yep.
All you got to do is hand it off to King Henry, and number 22 is going to put that ball in the box, and it's done.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, as much as I do not like the Ravens, I am not a fan of them. I can't stand KC either. But Derrick Henry makes them a serious contender. A lot more than anybody else they decide. Even Saquon Barkley, he really turns it up for them.
That's a huge addition. So we're going to see what the Chiefs do. I mean, the Chiefs have added some piece on defense. They retained some defensive pieces, so it's now the Chiefs' move. The Ravens are out here playing chess, and so the Chiefs now have to step up and kind of counter. I mean, I know they're defending champions, but Baltimore got much better. A team that I also think got better in the NFC is the Eagles. I think Saquon Barkley is actually going to be really good in Philly. Change of scenery. I think just a change of an environment. Get on more of a fast-paced team, an aggressive team. I think Saquon does very, very well in Philly.
Yeah. So what the big thing about that is he gets an offensive line.
Yep.
Now, granted, the offensive line lost its middle piece. Jason Kelce retires. But Philadelphia gives you the same thing Baltimore does. You've got a running, throwing quarterback, and now you have a true hard-nosed back to go in there and get things done.
Sure.
Honestly, I look at Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley as 2 of the better signings. Kirk Cousins goes to Atlanta, and Atlanta has
signings.
Well, no. Atlanta just went from a quarterback that couldn't play football to a guy that might get you 3 or 4 wins on top of what he got. Now, hold on. He's a regular season quarterback, not a primetime guy or postseason. But you got to think if they could get 9 wins last year, that they can get 10 or I think it's 9 wins, 10 or 11 this year. Okay. I, I mean, they have promise if they can get it done. Defensively, should be fine. They'll have a new offensive scheme, but that's
Kirk
a big
Cousins is
deal.
trash. Kirk
$90
Cousins is
million.
trash.
Yeah, $90 million guaranteed. Okay.
Way too much money. Way too
Oh,
much
I
money
agree.
for a 30-plus-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury, who's never won a big game, who's shown that he's never been an elite quarterback, and we're giving him $90 million with the possibility of that turning into $180 million. We said it last pod. This is turning into monopoly money. Russell Wilson, they just burned $85 million out the door. The Denver Broncos did, and Atlanta just burned $90 million giving it to Kirk Cousins because he's going to be terrible. I mean, I cannot stand the fact that we give so much money to the quarterbacks that are going downhill or one never been elite. Now, I'm not saying Russell Wilson was never elite because he was one of the best. He was a top 10 quarterback in the league during his prime in Seattle. May have been a system, that's for a different argument, different day. Kirk Cousins has never been, and now we're giving him $90 million guaranteed $90 million. Even if this guy shows up and falls down like Rodgers did in game one on the third play and it's like, well, I'm done for the rest of the season. This guy has swindled NFL owners out of almost $400 million. Ridiculous.
Yeah, he has, and it's funny. His agent has been great for him. I don't understand how someone so mediocre can pull this off. But you brought up Russell Wilson, who signed a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers to pay him less than $2 million a year, which means the Broncos are on the hook for $38 million. What an awful
Plus
contract.
The 85 they had to give up.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
they talk about horrible business deals. I mean, but again, and you find this in mainly quarterback positions. Every once in a while, you'll get a dud of a running back, but mainly in the quarterback position, you dump this money in unproven talent because we're taking a risk. I mean, if we want to take a risk, give me 85 and go play roulette.
Yeah.
We'll have a whole lot more fun than watching Russell Wilson out there go under 500. To watch Kirk Cousins turn the Falcons into stay as a 10-win, 9-win team and probably get even worse. I mean, it's a horrible signing, horrible decision.
Well, a lot of quarterbacks made some moves. There's still a lot of stuff going on out there. Day one and day two of free agency are generally your big days. They can sign everybody tomorrow, I believe. All the agreements are in, but they can sign everybody tomorrow. It is wild right now in the NFL. I mean, these are big name guys that if you've watched the NFL in the last 10 years, you've seen them all. And there's still some big ones out there. Receivers.
Out there.
Oh, it's crazy. The receivers are having a hard problem because the draft is so receiver rich. Sure. Really excited to see what happens on draft day. The top 3 picks are held by teams that need quarterbacks, and only one of those has a viable quarterback to trade. It's going to be, I'm telling you, it's going to be like the Wild West out here this year. I think everybody is vying to win now. So we'll see where it goes, but definitely an exciting free agency so far.
The last thing before we get into more of the whip around coverage, we're kind of wrapping this up, is Tiger Woods is not in the field, the players this year. They thought this was going to be an event he was going to play when they talked about him playing one event a month. And I know, Justin, you and I were looking forward to that. Because that was going to be the Players, Augusta, and so on, major season. It hit April, May, June, and July, and then maybe he wraps it up, maybe with a FedEx Cup appearance. But it looks like Tiger Woods is not going to play the Players, and that is sad news.
Yeah, it's his last year of eligibility, and I'll be honest with you.
To me. I still don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, I think you and I both agree that there should be some tournaments that you get lifetime exemption from, within reason. I think the Masters is definitely the one that I feel like should always be there. It wasn't meant to be a major, but the issue I have with it, and this is not a popular opinion between us Tiger lovers, but I wonder how many more he has in him.
I know.
He just played an event down at Seminole.
Yeah, and he hit it well.
And that was a warm up to see how he was. But is he strictly in tournaments he can control? Like he controls the Genesis, right?
Sure. 72 holes is tough walking.
It is, because it doesn't matter how well you hit it, and he's never going to take a card. It really does stink. It's like you're watching the end of someone you admired for years as far as his golf game goes. So hopefully he gives us some good major material. Hopefully, he can come back and play hard in the Masters. The thing is, and the one thing that I want for him, I don't want him to go out like he's been there too long. And I think in some of this, everybody says, well, he has, and he had in 2018, and he had in the first part of 2019, and then he goes out to Augusta and wins. You never doubt him. You never doubt Jordan. You never doubt Brady. You know, these guys have that thing. Jordan didn't know when to leave. Tom left a year too late. It's not that I don't think Tiger can go out there and win one. He can put it together. I mean, Watson went out there at 60 or 70-something years old at the Open and almost won the daggone thing. It's not that he can't do it. It's that will he ever be ready to do it? Is his body giving up? So I do too. I think it's tough, and we'll get into more of that later as we see what he does for the Masters. But you know, the good thing is I think he'll be around golf for a long time with Charlie, and obviously the senior tour. He wants to go out there and win a few tournaments, I'm sure. Yep. But we'll just have to see. You know, and I think the thing is,
good tournament. It's still going to be a good tournament without him. But I'm bummed not to see him in there. And like I said, we're going to definitely highlight a lot more of that when it comes to the Masters because he's definitely going to play in there.
Yeah, and the featured groups are already posted. If you want to check them out, if you haven't looked, the featured groups are already posted. Scheffler, Thomas, and Fowler kick off Thursday, so that'll be a good one. But yeah, it's good. Just it sucks to see him not play. Like you want to see him play, but again, he's got lots of golf left in him. Hopefully, it's on the PGA, not the senior. But if it is, I'll still watch. So
absolutely. So Justin, jump us into NASCAR. So we've been doing these segments towards the end, and NASCAR is definitely one that we've drawn a lot of interest for, and definitely a lot of listeners have reached out. So we're excited about that. So Justin, what about NASCAR? We talked about there's a big race coming up. Maybe in 2 weeks, but we've had some decent NASCAR. But it looked like NASCAR had a little bit of a down week. Maybe is that the right terminology to say?
Well, it wasn't a down week. It was more of it's more of well, Chevy didn't win. That's the first thing. A Toyota won. A Toyota found its place again at the top. 5 out of the top 10 vehicles, or excuse me, 4 out of the top 10 vehicles were Chevys. 5 were Fords and 1 was Chevrolet. So Chevy struggled this week, but at the same time, this is what I mean. It's a mile and a half track. This is what happens. You have one unit that runs really well and one that doesn't.
Sure.
So for me, I think it wasn't necessarily a bad week. Kyle Busch didn't finish too well, but they had some dust-ups going on, and that's fine. It just isn't an exciting track. Like I don't get excited for Phoenix, right? But what I do get excited for, Christopher Bell won the race. Let's get that out the way. What I do get excited for is when they go to Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee / Virginia. Okay? This is by far probably top 5 track. It is small. It is hard. You know, when it's not easy to pass, but it's a fun track. There's good racing, and you have to make moves. I mean, you can't just sit back and watch. You've got to do something. Okay, so they'll run.
Legends have run around that track.
Oh yeah, I mean listen. As a kid, the greatest quote I ever heard was, "I wasn't trying to wreck him. I was just trying to rattle his cage." That's Dale Earnhardt talking about when he wrecked Taylor Labonte going into turn 3 to go in for the win. They run this weekend, 3:30. It's a day race. Bristol under the lights is amazing. Love watching night races, but I really think this is a good shot to see where everybody is. First of all, manufacturer-wise, if Ford can do anything, that'd be pretty impressive. Toyota would probably run the short track. I don't know that Chevy has much for them in recent years, but you do have one of the best short track runners in Kyle Busch there. Did a lot of damage at Bristol and Richmond, so he's with Chevy. This is year 2 for that, or coming back to Chevy. This is year 2 for that, and I'm excited. There's been good racing. There's new racing. They got the Truck Series Saturday night, which is exciting. Ready to watch our guy come back and see if he can win it back-to-back races. So, slow week last week. I'm not a Phoenix fan. It's a mile and a half track. We'll have a lot of those this season.
Yeah, they all can't be exciting.
Right, but Bristol is that's another one you mark on your calendar to watch. So I'm excited for it. I know really any NASCAR fan loves Bristol. Then in 2 weeks, you've got Richmond after that. So Richmond's on Easter this year. And I believe Martinsville is in between that. But really good couple of weeks coming up. The local track here will be running in 2 weeks, so that's good.
Yeah,
Shout
super
out
excited.
to Shout out on the Cars Tour real quick to the 00 Chase Burrow. He finished in 4th this weekend. That season has kicked off. It's amazing, folks. If you love racing, there's racing all over your state. There are tracks everywhere. Go watch some of it. We've got 6 tracks in this state alone. You just got to go find it. Everybody's running all types of vehicles, small cars, big cars, cars that don't stay on the ground. It's awesome. So, but NASCAR this weekend should be really, really good.
Nice. Good. Good. Well, I'm glad we got that. We're looking forward to next week's pod when we recap what happens at Bristol. We're going to work that into the pod. We're going to have the March Madness show. We're going to have guests on. So continue to stay with us. Hang tough with us. Justin, what else we got before we get into the last segment with the horses?
Caitlin Clark finished the deal. She won a championship. And if you ask some people, now she's great. They win the Big Ten Women's Championship going on to the tournament. The hockey this week, it's not much going on. I mean, look, they're playing games. There's about 15 to 20 games left.
Yeah, something like that. Getting ready to playoffs in a couple
Yeah,
weeks.
so getting ready for playoffs. Teams are either shoring up or they're selling or,
well, the deadline
they're figuring
happened,
it out.
So you're talking about the deadline happened, and we these teams are now figuring out how to play with their new pieces, right? Their new teammates. People are getting adjusted. We've seen a lot of defensemen and a lot of defensemen and goal scorers get changed or change teams. And so they're getting used to their lines. They're getting used to the different teams, coaches, everything. So they got about 15, 20 games, like you said, to figure that out and get ready for that playoff push.
Yeah, so I'm excited coming to the close of the season here. Colorado's going to be a top 4 seed, chance to win this thing. But realistically, if you've watched hockey in the last month, anybody can win any night, and there are a lot of teams that look really, really good right now.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and what's amazing is that the sport's continuing to grow with the TV packages they've signed, and hopefully the salaries do too. But the best players are playing great hockey right now, and I think that's what I'm really enjoying. Is you're not watching bad hockey, you're watching good hockey. I mean, obviously you want to watch a good sport, but sometimes you can watch football and it's just bad game, but the score's close. We're watching some good hockey, a lot of goal scoring, a lot of great goaltending too from some of these guys. I mean, there's been a lot of shutouts in the last week.
Absolutely.
So excited for that to come on. If you want to roll through the sports world a little bit, the NBA they're doing the same thing. They suck. And it's ridiculous. The Wizards have the worst record in the league, have won 2 back-to-back games to beat the Miami Heat. I'm sorry, if you're trying to play for a championship and you're losing to the Wizards, you might as well check that off. That's not going to happen this year. That's ridiculous.
Let's get into a better sport called horse racing than the NBA.
Yeah. Let's move on. So we're at that time. I was checking my notes. We're at that time. It is your 5 minutes with Mike Mills. Tonight, we're going to go over the Tampa Bay Derby, and then we're going to have some questions for Mike, jockey-related questions. Try and get an understanding of some things that I've always had questions about, and we'll delve into it with the pro. Mike, another win for Chad Brown this weekend in Tampa Bay. What do you know about domestic product?
So it's interesting. So domestic product is from Claridge Stables, and for those that follow horse racing and for those that do not, Claridge Stables is a big-time breeding and owning, actually more of an owner than anything else. And so Claridge Stables, they have a famous silks. Silks are the actual outfit the jockeys wear. So when you see the horse going around the track, they have the saddle cloth or the towel, and that shows their number. So, for example, 1 is always red, 2 is always white and black, 3 is blue with a white number. They stay the same color for every track, right? The majority of every track, so the bigger tracks. So the saddle cloth's there, but what the jockey's wearing is actually the colors or the silks of the owner. So Claridge Stables has the famous white silk with 2 red stripes and a big red KS on there. Claridge Stables is a big owner in horse racing. They send the majority, if not all, of their horses to Chad Brown, and Chad Brown's definitely very good friends with Seth Claremont, who is the owner of Claridge Stables. So domestic product is actually owned by Claridge Stables. You will always find them they have a 2 word name horse always, and so that's how you can always distinguish them most of the time. So Claridge Stables is the owner, Chad Brown's the trainer, and Tyler Gaffleone was the rider. Really strong performance in Tampa Bay Derby. I mean, did he light up the board and say that he's gonna, be the Derby winner and the favorite? Still kind of early to tell. But I thought he ran really well. The interesting thing about this is, if you remember from our first show when we talked about this, Sierra Leone is also trained by Chad Brown and also ridden by Tyler Gaffleone. So usually jockeys try to stick with the same horse, but now if that horse goes in the Derby gates, Tyler Gaffleone has a decision to make.
Yeah, so that was going to be one of my questions tonight was how do you deal, okay, as we're here, how do you deal with what we have going on, all right, when you have a jockey who's ridden two horses,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So where do you go? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
who well first question, who makes that decision? The jockey or the trainer?
So this is where it gets really interesting, and this is where I suggest everyone follow very closely, especially these two horses, and who Tyler Gaffleone picks. So it's interesting you say that who makes the decision. On any other race but the Derby, the jockey and the agent are pretty much going to make the decision in talk to the trainer. Now, let's say Tyler Gaffleone rode for Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher. Well, both trainers want the jockey, so it's the jockey's ultimate decision, right?
Right.
This is a scenario. So, in that one's very clear cut. The jockey's agent reaches out to the trainer and says he's going to ride your horse, and then that trainer's happy. He tells the other trainer, we're not going to ride for your horse, and that trainer has to go find another jockey. Now, what happens in the Derby that's very interesting is this. Let's say the jockey's taking a while to make his decision, especially for Chad Brown. So Chad Brown's got two monster horses that are right now on the top of the Kentucky Derby points leaderboard, and Tyler Gaffleone has to make a decision. Right now, I can tell you, Tyler Gaffleone knows in his mind who he's going to ride because he's ridden both, he's felt both, he knows who's a better horse, week in, week out, right?
Right.
So Tyler's going to make that decision pretty easily. But here's what's happened recently, especially as last year's Derby. If a jockey's taking a long time to make a decision, a trainer will pull the trigger on another jockey because they don't want another top jockey gone and services taken with another trainer before they could get one. They don't want to be left, quote unquote, holding the bag, right? They don't want to be left, especially when it's a trainer versus another trainer. They will go out and find a jockey quick and say, look, you took too long to make your decision. Ride the other horse. I got my jockey.
Okay. So I understand that. They're in football, you have quarterbacks that can play for this team, but might not be a good fit for that team. So if Tyler Gaffleone's a good fit for both of these horses, and he's taken a while to make a choice, even though he probably, I mean, look, they've been doing this a long time. This isn't, it's an abnormal thing. This doesn't happen very often, I wouldn't believe. But in this scenario for Tyler Gaffleone or for Chad Brown, you have to find a jockey that doesn't have another Derby horse already who fits the one that he doesn't get picked. And if they're two completely different horses, man, that is a heartache there. What do you who would resemble Tyler Gaffleone the most out of another jockey if you can speak on that at all?
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is the two horses are very, very different. So that's the key. The key is not the type of rider the jockey is, and necessarily it is what does the fit best with the horse. So, for example, Sierra Leone has come from farther back than mid pack, more of a closer type of horse, right? He's going to be when the gates break at the Derby. He's going to be somewhere between 12 to 15, 12 to 16 in the pack of the 20 horses. That's where he's going to be, and he may even shuffle back, maybe even 18 at that point, depending on who else makes the field. Domestic product is more of a mid pack or a stalker, is what we would call them. So he's going to sit fourth, fifth, sixth, somewhere around there. In the Derby, you're going to see him around between 6 to 8 in that kind of range. So he's a mid-pack rider, a mid-pack stalker, and you need a mid-pack rider. Tyler Gaffleone actually has very good tendencies on both. Tyler Gaffleone isn't the best speed rider to get a horse that goes gate to wire, right? And comes out of the gate, and he's the front-running horse who tries to lead it from start to finish. That's not his strong suit. He's much more of a patient rider. He's much more of a timing rider. Him and Irad Ortiz are very, very similar in this. Irad just has to be doing on a all-world type of scale right now, and Tyler's a couple years behind Irad. But Tyler's a very patient rider, knows how to ride mid-pack stalkers, and knows how to ride a closer. Depending on the level of the horse, I would say Tyler's going to pick the one that he thinks he can win. So if you are watching for the Derby and you're trying to decide which one you're going to decide between, check who Tyler Gaffalione decides to ride, because that is who Tyler thinks is the better horse. And I would trust Tyler's decision in that one, because that's who he's going to think gives him the best chance to have a Kentucky Derby victory. So that's who I would go with. If I was guessing right now, and I know you're going to ask me to pick, so I'm just going to go ahead and beat you to it. I actually think he picks Domestic Product and does not pick Sierra Leone. However, I think he should pick Sierra Leone.
Oh, we disagree. We disagree.
I think he should pick Sierra Leone, but I think he sticks with Domestic Product because of Clairvitch Stables, because of who the owner is, and I think it's something that we're going to see. Now, if he gets overridden and Chad Brown he's not going to put Irad, because Irad's going to ride for Pletcher in the Derby. If he puts, I don't know who he's going to put on that horse. He may pick Flavian, because you're not going to have a lot of the West Coast horses come. Flavian Pratt's a phenomenal jockey. And
I can't stand him. Can't stand him. Stupid name. Shut up. Get out of here. All right. So we disagree on that, and I will tell you why. I firmly do not believe that a horse that hangs back like Sierra Leone does can succeed in a Derby if he draws the wrong post. If Sierra Leone draws 1 through 5, I think there's no chance he wins. He's going to get stuck. What I saw when I watched the Tampa Bay Derby was this. Domestic Product hung right there. I mean, and Gaffalione's standing on it. He's just standing up. He's relaxing. Everything's good. And he almost broke him a hair too late, obviously. I mean, it was a photo freaking finish, right? But he got it going in that last 16th, and you've got to go a little bit farther than the Derby.
Correct.
And I honestly think, like for me, Domestic Product looked really good on that break. And I just think he can get there. It doesn't matter where he starts. It doesn't matter where he starts. If Sierra Leone hangs back, he's got to go through 8-9 horses that if he gets stuck on the inside, or he gets stuck with some of these other, the 50 to 1s, there's no chance for me. I don't think he's making it out there. If he starts out wide, if he gets a good post out wide, he might have that all day long, but he can't start on the inside. I just think he'd be out.
Yeah, that's hard for a lot of Derby horses anyway, starting on the inside, because everybody cuts you off and
right.
cuts over on you. The thing I think about Sierra Leone is this, and this is why I'm kind of keeping my eye on that and who Tyler picks, because Tyler rode a horse some years back called War of Will, and War of Will came from the depths, right? And the Derby, Tyler knows how to navigate very, very well. He's an incredible pilot, and he gets through traffic very, very well, and he has the horse underneath him. Keep in mind, if you go back and watch the replay, Sierra Leone was 10 wide making the turn on the stretch. We talked about the stretch, is that final straight run to the finish line. He's 10 wide. That's farther than most derbies that are out there when you swing that far wide, and he had enough gas to get it done. Now, were the horses as good in that derby? I don't know. In that Risen Star, I'm not sure. But the Tampa Bay Derby, they did have some good horses. Domestic Product came out on top. Like you said, Tyler's a great timing rider, so he wins by neck and noses a lot of times because he times it perfectly. Irad's the same way, so there's no knock there. Win is a win. I think Vin Diesel said win by an inch or a mile, winning's winning. So shout out to Vin Diesel and the Fast and Furious franchise. If they make 30 of those movies, I will watch every single one of them. I'm a Fast and Furious fan. But I think Tyler is going to pick Domestic Product. It depends on also what happens in Louisiana Derby. I'm pretty confident Sierra Leone's going to go there, and we'll see what happens. And so Tyler will ride him there, and we'll see what happens again. But again, keep an eye out for who Tyler picks, because that will tell you who he thinks his better chance of winning the Derby is.
All right, and last question. In this situation, in the situation you presented earlier with Chad Brown and a Fletcher Cox.
Todd Pletcher.
Todd Pletcher. I'm sorry.
Fletcher Cox.
So between two trainers, if I have a jockey that rides my horse and you have a jockey that rides your horse and it's the same jockey, do you offer him more money or I offer him more money to get him to come? Like if he can't decide, is that something that goes on? Is it a contract signed at the beginning of the year? Like, how would that work? And I don't want to take too long on that. I just didn't know if that was a thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenarios at play there. So the biggest one that I can speak to is that it's going to have implications of your future riding mounts. For example, if you like, I read Ortiz, right, was Chad Brown's number one rider for 6, 7 years, and now you see Irad riding a lot more for Pletcher and Mike Rapoli, who is the owner. He's based out of New York. Irad rides for him a ton. So Irad got more mounts with him. I don't know what happened between him and Chad. He still rides for Chad every once in a while, but Irad was the main rider for Clairvich Stables and Chad Brown. And now you see Irad run a lot for Pletcher and Mike Rapoli. And I don't think it's money, because typically it's a set amount, it's a set percentage, kind of like a caddy, right?
Yeah.
So the horse and the owner get the majority of the money, the player gets the more money, and the caddy gets like a 10% fee. Sometimes there's negotiations, 10, 12, different bonuses, and that happens with jockeys as well. There's a different negotiation for it. But what it is it's for future amounts, right? So Tyler's got to weigh that when it comes to his decision. But if you're debating between a Todd Pletcher or Brad Cox, you typically ride for one or the other more, and you're going to roll with that. It's more of a loyalty thing, because you know the amount you're going to get, right? And so that's what's going to happen. If you're an Irad or you're a Tyler who ride for various different riders, you're a Jose Ortiz, you're a Flavian Pratt, you're going to see those guys have tough decisions to make. And it happens every Derby where you're going to have tough decisions. You're hopeful for a jockey to be in that situation, because then you get to pick the better horse. I have seen jockeys make the wrong decision, and a different jockey rides that Derby winner, and I don't even know what that's going to feel like. That's got to be just the worst stomach punch.
Oh, Tyler Gaffley's got a tough one. I don't even enjoy thinking about that.
Yeah.
All right, so we've beat the Tampa Bay Derby horse to death now. All right, you have the Louisiana Derby coming up. You've got the foreign races coming up.
That's not coming up this weekend. Keep in mind,
No,
it's going to be in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm paying more attention to is as we get closer to May. Okay, we're still in March, but this will be 6 weeks from the race. Okay, so we're 6 weeks from the race of the Louisiana Derby. How soon before the Derby is too soon to race, in your opinion? So that's 6 weeks, and you still have a couple more races at 5 and 4 weeks. Is anybody going to race less than a month before the Derby?
Typically, no. So they moved there was like the last chance qualifier, in a sense, was 3 weeks before the Derby, and it was really tight to where the horse doesn't come back fresh enough. He's not at his best. He can't get back on his training regiment, feed schedule, because again, this race, not that it takes a lot out of them, but it does. It's an exhausting event, right? It's like training for an example, training for a race, a half marathon, or training for the Olympics on a sprint. That day, the next day you're exhausted, and so those horses are exhausted. They're athletes. So I think 3 weeks is too soon. I think you can do it in 4. I think you can do it for sure in 5. Absolutely, a lot of the big races are 5 weeks, 4 weeks. You can do it in 3. You can do it in 3, but it would be a tight turnaround. It's doable, and I think it's been done before. 2 weeks is way too short, so it can be done in 3. But again, that's also why the Triple Crown is so hard to win, because of the time in between each races.
Yeah, so to that point, you talk about the 3 weeks. That's the Lexington, which is a G3, and the Wood Memorial is the weekend before that's a G2. But this weekend, and I didn't. It's just not just the Louisiana Derby, which is a grade 2, but the Jeff Ruby Stakes are grade 3 this year.
Yep.
They're also running next weekend, the 23rd at Turfway, which is in Kentucky. Those are some big races next weekend that should not solidify, but get you an idea where the field's at, where some of the bigger horses are doing, how they're running. Hopefully no more scratches. But you're going to have them, but not in the big ones that you feel are the favorites. If a horse finishes second, third, or fourth, and they're running against other Derby horses, how much stock do you put in that? Not a bad showing, but just toe-to-toe. They have a good trip. The winner has a good trip. How much does the trainer or the jockey put into that and going, okay, we gave it all we got today, and it just wasn't enough to beat, let's say, Sierra Leone. Okay.
Yeah. You put a ton of stock in that. You put a ton of stock in that because you want to look at who the horse beat or who he got beat by, right? And then you want to see how he got beat. Was it a bad trip? Did he not break well from the gate? Because you're talking about the break from the gate can cost a horse 2 to 3 placings. It can cost him 2 to 3 strides right out the gate, and now you're playing catch up. It's a whole different game plan. Keep in mind, a lot of these races are a minute and some change. The Derbies run it 2 minutes and 2 seconds, 2:02, 2:06, 2:05. And those are kind of average times. Sub 2 minute Derby is lightning fast. So you're talking about a lot can happen that can make make or break a race pretty quickly. So I look at a couple of things. I'm a big replay watcher, so I want to see the replay. I don't just trust workouts and reading the form. I want to watch the replays because I want to see what they're doing, how they're running, how they got beat. Did they have a chance in the race? Was it bad timing by the jockey? Was it a bad trip? What was it? So that's one. I put a ton of stock in who got beat by them because also did they win convincingly? Were they getting tired? Like you said, you running a mile and a 16th or a mile and an eighth, and now you're going to be running a mile and a quarter. So now it's a little bit farther. Did that horse just run out of room? Was he screaming for the finish line to come up because he had people breathing down his neck? So all of those things play into what I think and what I ultimately make my decisions on.
Okay. All right. It's for me, and I've always felt this way. Horse racing is not like regular sports. Like Eli Manning beat Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady didn't play bad. I mean, he had a perfect season going to the Super Bowl one of those years in 2007. But in horse racing, like you just have to trust the horse. He's going to show you. There's no magical serum that's going to get them to be leaps faster. And I just wanted your take on that, and I appreciate that. Now, as we closed 5 minutes, which has been a little bit more with Mike tonight, we want to go back to our list of unranked favorites, just favorites that you have. We've got Fierceness, Sierra Leone, and Dornoch. Okay. Has that list changed at all for you? And
Yeah.
and do you think domestic product moves into your top three?
Yeah, he has to. I mean, it was a good performance. I still am a big believer in fierceness, but right now it is a sport of what have you done lately and how you are running lately. And so I will probably move fierceness out of my top three, and he'll probably be like 3B. He'll be the fourth. As we're talking about March Madness, he's the first out. I can tell you that. I would move domestic product in and keep Sierra Leone and Dornoch. I think fierceness is better than Locked for sure, who I also mentioned, but Fierceness is someone that I think can make a huge bounce back, and if he does, he will be your Derby favorite for sure. They're screaming for him to run well, and if he does, he is going to show out, and I think it's going to be a great horse. But right now, I can't put him in the top three because he hasn't run.
Okay. And are all of the top three in the 3A going to be, or 3B, are they the top four going to be in the next weekend's events? Or do you know?
So they haven't listed the fields yet. They usually come out the Monday or Tuesday before. So we're about a week away from that being listed. I suspect Sierra Leone is going to run in Louisiana Derby. He run the Risen Star. It's an absolute path to run in the Louisiana Derby. So that's probably what they're going to do. You're going to see Dornoch and Locked both go to the Florida Derby and stay in Florida. I suspect that you're going to have domestic product. That's going to be an interesting one because he's in the Tampa Bay Derby. He could make a couple decisions and go to the Florida Derby. See what Chad Brown wants to do. I doubt he goes all the way up for the Wood Memorial. He might, depending if that field comes up weak. But Chad Brown's got some decisions when it comes to Tampa Bay. I suspect he's going to put him in the Florida Derby and make it an absolute loaded Florida Derby because then I think that's a good idea because you're going to find out what your horse is made of right then and right there. You're going to find out is he a legit Derby horse when you're running against other legit Derby contenders. And that also allows Tyler to make a better decision, you to make a better decision as a trainer because you're going to have Sierra Leone who probably wins the Louisiana Derby. So you get to find out what your horse is made of right then and there. So I would do that. Some trainers don't. We'll see what happens. But we'll see what happens next week when the fields get listed.
Okay. And just two more questions. All right, Sierra Leone and domestic product. Does he put another jockey on one of them to figure out what's going on in the last race before the Derby? Just a quick answer, yes. Okay.
No.
All right. So they're not going to race the same. They're not going to race the Florida Derby together. That's not going to happen.
Correct.
Are you willing to give a Derby favorite today? Or do you want to see one more set of races with them?
We haven't had any of the big races yet. We've had some easier preps. They got to run against each other. That's the thing. Okay. You've got to see them run against each other because then you can really tell. Because again, we're talking about who have they beaten. Were they good fields? Were they not? You'll find out when you start running the Florida Derby, Wood Memorial, Arkansas Derby is a big one that I want to watch as well.
And these guys are pretty much locked in, right? There's not.
Yeah.
They're not going to get surpassed. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So, guys, right now, if you're listening, Sierra Leone, Dornoch, domestic product is number 3. 3A and Fierceness is 3B right now. They'll all be racing in the next 3 weeks here as you have the races come up again. Not this weekend, but next weekend you have the Louisiana Derby and the Jeff Ruby Stakes. You also have from Funabashi, Chiba, Japan. So that winter will be over here for the Kentucky Derby. Mike, anything else, sir? It's been a good week.
Man, it's been a great show. Yes. Look for us next week when we have the March Madness show. We're going to talk about who our picks are. We're going to have some guests on the show. We're going to talk all things basketball. We're going to have some interesting topics. We're going to do more of the basketball. We're going to touch on the golf. We're not going to leave you hanging with Bristol and NASCAR. And we're also going to have a quick run around horse segment as well, previewing some of those big races. So for me, we had the Do Better segment, Turkey Stats, Talman Tips. We're bringing you all types of coverage. We're changing up the show a little bit. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. I am Mike, always saying be kind, be humble, and always be grateful. Turkey.
Yep. Hey, guys, don't forget that Talman tip. No Big Ten team in the last no Big Ten tournament champion in the last 5 years has gone on to the second weekend. Remember, as you fill your brackets out Sunday night when they come out, enjoy the rest of this week in college basketball. We'll see you next time. Catch me at Bama Turk 46 on X. Mike, have a good evening.